Fortsätt rätt fram.
Det är väldigt många som kör allt för fort i närheten av skolor och barnhagar.
We go unconscious about driving. We're thinking about what we're going to have for lunch or a meeting we just had.
Pysy vasemmalla.
If aja hiljaa navigaattorisovellus on kuin mikä tahansa ääniohjattu navigaattori. Vaan sillä pienellä erotuksella, että kun sä ajat koulujen, päiväkotien tai jonkun muun paikan lähellä, jossa on pieniä lapsia, se ääniohjaus muuttuu lapsen ääneksi.
Sväng skarpt.
Nord. Det är okännes.
Jag tror inte man kan skrämma folk med fel attityd till att köra bättre. Speciellt när det är obetänksamhet som gör att man kanske kör för fort.
We are programmed to care for children. So when you hear a child's voice, it will have that immediate effect of putting you in mind of looking after children. There's an association there already.
Bremselängden blir mycket längre om man kör i 50 istället för 30, och om det plötsligt står ett barn i vägen så gäller det att kunna stoppa så fort som överhuvud möjligt.
Olisi hienoa, jos autoteollisuus hyödyntäisi ideaa ja implementoisi sen kaikkiin navigaattoreihin.
A child giving me directions, it will have an immediate visceral, physical, cognitive, behavioral effect. I think it's an excellent idea.
Du har nått ditt mål.
Andersson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I'm really glad you wanted to have me here. I must apologize first because I don't speak Finnish at all, so I will have to do this in English. I hope you abide with me in that. I'm here to tell you all the secrets there are about Forsman and Bodenfors. There's different ways to talk about this agency. One of them is this. This is the people of Forsman Bodenfors. And you know, they look just like you. No real difference. They're not even particularly smart, I would say. Neither am I. But they seem to enjoy work. That's what the picture tells me. Another way of speaking about Forsman and Bodenfors is to say that we're an agency from a 500,000 people small city on the southwest of a rather insignificant country far up north. A little like Helsinki, right? It's the same size. That's where we are. We're really proud of being from there. That we're not from somewhere else. Because that has shaped us, and I'm going to come to that. Our CFO would say like this: the core agency is 140 people. The agency fees, that's sort of the net billings. Production is 21 million euros, and the profit is 5 million last year. So it's a very healthy, very profitable company, which is important. Really important. If you're not profitable, you can't make your own decisions. Doesn't matter if you own yourself or someone else owns you. If you own yourself, so you don't make any money, the bank will tell you what to do. This is another way of presenting us. We have the same organization as Coop. We're owned by a cooperative entity where you become a member. And these are the people who are 25-something people working full-time at the agency. And you don't own shares directly. You're a member of that community, so you go naked in, you go naked out. Whatever you get from the agency is if we produce any money every year. That also means that any decision is taken as a group decision. In the US, they think we're like communists or something. I don't understand this, but this they understand. In the core agency, there are 51 creatives, or like 50-ish, something. Last time I looked, we had 34 clients, and we put out like 150 campaigns every year. I think this is figures that you will recognize here in Finland too, because the kind of agencies where you work together and you're small has a totally different productivity than the global big-scale agencies have. Totally different. Looking at these figures, that means that every creative team at our agency pulls out like 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 campaigns a year. Some of them are really big, some of them are smaller, but still. If you would go to New York and look at the agencies there, or in London, you would have a majority of all the teams not getting one single job out in a year. You have young people, probably from Finland too, going to New York, working for no money at all, and they come back after 2 years and they have nothing to show. That's productivity. Now, that could easily be seen as like that we're some kind of sweatshop that work all the time. And although I'm an old guy, so I do wish we could work a little more than we do sometimes. It's not about that. Just putting in the hours is not the solution to this. This is another way of seeing the agency. We have won now 94 lines in Cannes, and we're actually right now, and I want to enjoy that moment, because right now we're ranked the most creative agency in the world. We're not going to be that next year. We're not going to be that next year, I know that. We already know that. But we've been up there among the top 10 in the world now for the last 10 years, more or less. And with the Epic split, we hit it big. So people ask, how do you do this? What's the secret with F&B? Is there a manual? Is there a way of doing this? Yes, there is actually. There is, a matter of fact, there is a way to do this. And you could all do it. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's a couple of things I want to share with you. Some of them are things that we learned from the beginning, or ideas we had from the beginning. I wasn't there 29 years ago when the agency started, but I was there 20 years ago when we were still like small. And I don't think I'll ever have another job. What we know, and what you know too, is that there's a totally different way of organizing creative work than what the big agencies of our business do. It's a totally different way. And there's nothing strange about it. We have an organization in the advertising world that is extremely hierarchic. There aren't many businesses around the world that are that hierarchic. I'd say the Catholic Church and the army, something like that, where you need to have a strict order of decisions, right? Because otherwise people will die at the end of it. Our industry is one of the few that still has that. Our clients don't have it anymore. They have all kinds of different organizations. Our clients have evolved their organizations. Many of you sitting here as clients. And you knew that even if you're hierarchic to some extent, you work in a lot of cross-reference groups and a lot of different constellations. Not in this business. This is what it usually looks like at the agencies we're competing with. Further, you make the best creatives something else, and you hire a lot of people without any pay to do the idea work. And only one group can win, so for every winner, there's like 5 or 6 or 10 groups that are losers. So you create a world where people compete with each other, try to fight each other internally to be the ones who get on the top. That's a really strange way to behave and a really strange way to drive creative work. We don't have any creative directors. The reason why is we can't understand what they're going to do. You take the best creative you have and you put them behind a desk to judge other people's ideas instead of doing what they're good at and what they think is fun. We never understood that. Of course, you need an organization. Anybody who talks to agencies around the world, they would say, we have a special culture. Everybody has a special culture. I bet they have. We have a special culture also, but that's not going to do it. This is not about culture, first of all. It's about organization. It's about processes, it's about doing things the right way. Now, if everybody just did it their own way, there'll be too many chefs. Our way of organizing is the team. And people always most of them get a little pissed off because this seems so simple. And it is. Simple is good. We're advertisers, we should know simple is good. And further to this, what we really do, you remember, any of you here started an agency or a design agency or whatever, right? You remember when you were like a handful of people and you worked together as a team and everybody did everything and it's like a family, right? There's a reason. We people are programmed to function in a family of some sort. So if you don't have kids, you get a dog, right? You need to be a family. Everybody who does any kind of creative work knows that a group, if you do a group session, 5 or 6 people is the so you start out 5 or 6 people. Well, you start out and you do really well and you start to grow. When you start to grow, you say, we have to organize ourselves. And then you make a hierarchy. Someone has to be the boss and someone has to be... That's totally contradictory to the idea of creativity. So what we've done, instead from the beginning, we've organized ourselves so that the work teams is responsible for everything that meets the client. They're responsible for the creative work, they're responsible for the financial work, for the money, for everything. We don't even have a big administrative body because all the invoicing is done in the team. Which is, what we do then is that we create services for those teams under them. Could be production buy-in, could be human resources, should be all kinds of things to support them to do their job. But they own themselves the relationship with the client and the business, which means that the client meets the person who actually does the job, and the client works together with the people who have to learn the client's everyday chore and their market and their consumers. Because whatever we do by the end of the day, someone's got to sell something. That's what it's all about. It could be a product, a service, an idea, a religion, whatever. But someone's got to buy. Otherwise, we can't pay the bills. That also means that it's nothing strange that all kinds of people sit mixed up with each other. We don't have departments. How could we? We don't work in departments, so we shouldn't have that. Someone asked me about planning, for instance. I'll come back to that. But planners are an integrated part of the creative process. They're not a department. They don't do this part of a linear thing. Creative work is iterative. You do it over and over and over and over and over again till you have something worthwhile. Well, production is linear. So it's a totally different process. It also means that if you work together with the client for such a long time, you get to know the client so very well. Someone said to me yesterday, we had a dinner, he said, how do you go about selling the ideas you produce? We don't. Because they're not supposed to come as a surprise to the client. I know creatives, I'm not a creative, I know creatives love that when they sort of go in there, come in from the left and they just, this fantastic idea and the client is absolutely baffled about it. And that's a myth. People don't want to buy things they don't understand and feel comfortable with. So we bring the client in from day one, throughout the whole process, no black boxes, no secrets, because they help us make the work better. So what actually happens is that it's sometimes hard to tell who's from the client side and who's from the agency side. I have to keep track of that because I'm doing the billings, but other than that, it's not interesting. Planning, there's a discussion in many countries between, there's a British idea of planning, which means that you have a linear process. So someone gets the brief, hand it over to the planner works for 4 weeks trying to find out everything, and then writes a creative brief. And often with a concept line, and then gives it to a lot of creatives, and they do ideas on that. We don't believe in that. First of all, we never have those 4 weeks or those 4 weeks. Sometimes we have 3 days with our clients because they want to sell something. So the creative process also, the planning is not a part of the account direction. It's a part of the creative process. And the ones responsible for the planning is really the creative work team. And then they have a planner to help them out, because it's their responsibility. Another thing is that some agencies, they have some people doing film, some people doing what they call the nitty-gritty. We don't do that. The team does everything, from the big films or the big productions down to the little flyer. They might not do everything hands-on because some accounts are bigger, so we need a lot of people. But they're responsible for every single piece. Because it's no use doing a fantastic film if there isn't a tactical end to it and someone buys stuff at the end. So you need to be multitask. And I mentioned the word responsibility several times because leadership, the way we see it, is not telling people what to do and when to do it. It's making people take responsibility themselves and do it themselves, because they're capable, good people. And it saves guys like me a lot of work. The only thing you have to do is you have to make sure that you share everything with the other people, with the rest of the agency. So everything you have, put it on the floor, put it on screens, so everybody can see it and everybody can help you out to do it better. A good thing about that is sometimes an idea comes up from another direction. The best thing of it is nothing really bad ever goes out the door, because it will be spotted long before. So for many creatives, that's a tough thing. They tend to have a feeling that they own their own ideas and they want to protect them from everybody. It doesn't work with us. You have to share.
My name is Jakob Nelson. I am 47 years old. I have been working as a copywriter for 25 years, and I have won 4 Grand Prix in Cannes, and I work as a copywriter.
To get everyone's opinion about my idea is of course very good, but sometimes it can be really hard to navigate among all the people's opinions. Because he thinks you should do that, and she thinks you should go that way. And especially when you're new, it's really hard to know who to listen to. But in the end, I think you have to learn that you have to trust yourself too, because it's really important what you think, and to trust what you think will be the best.
I think the way we're working at the agency, that we, no matter how old you are, you're still a creative guy. So I think, in a way, you feel as a 25-year-old throughout the whole career because of that. I'm no better when it comes to coming up with ideas. I'm no better than the guy who just came here from school.
The whole point, since we don't have the luxury of attracting the smartest people on the earth, because they don't want to move to Gothenburg, we sort of have to settle with people like me. And the trick is to make us perform better than we are by helping each other, not fighting each other. That sounds really simple, but it's really difficult to do in real life, because sharing is a difficult thing. If you have losses, sharing is simple. You just blame everybody else, right? But if you have success, that's difficult to share, because you want to claim it for yourself and keep it for yourself. So that's what we're fighting, constantly fighting every day, and fighting with every new person who comes to work with us, is that share successes. Share successes. That was about the agency. Now I'm going to go into a couple of things. that is a bit more closer to the title of this speech, things we've learned over the years, the things we're constantly learning. Our clients are not the biggest clients in the world. I handle Volvo cars globally, or handle, what a terrible word. I'm responsible for our collaboration with Volvo cars, though we've been awarded a global account. And it's a really big account, right? But Volvo is a really small player in cars. They have in the US, they have 0.4 market shares, percentage in market shares. So they don't have a lot of money. That's sort of common for all our clients. They have little money, not a lot of media money. They're pressed. They have bigger competitors. I bet it's the same here in Finland. So you can learn that. The death of demographics. You know, it so happened that 2,000 years ago, the Emperor August summoned each and every one to go to their hometown to register. So Joseph was asked his name, his age, where he came from, his family, and his occupation. And you know why? Because they wanted to tax him. So taxation was the reason for demographics, and it's been that ever since. Demographics is a way for any prince above us to ask us questions to control us, to make sure that they can put us in boxes, to describe our actions and help us. All they really want to do is control us. And that worked fine for thousands of years, because if you didn't do what they told you, they would send out a bunch of guys with swords and cut you down, right? That's the way it was done. It was a king, sent out a decree, they put it on the wall. They also sent along a drummer to raise attention. That's the creatives. And then they sent these guys to chop everybody down who didn't do what they told us. Fortunately, today we have democracy, we have education, we have a lot of different things that people actually have a will of their own. I've tried to figure out how I work and how I make decisions. And I'm 58 now, and I haven't really figured out myself yet. I get astonished all the time what kind of decisions making I do. And I bet it's the same with all of you. Every important decision in your life has been emotional. But some of them you can't live with the fact that it's emotional, so you rationalize them to yourself. You need rationalization. But everything important is emotional. Now look at the consumer today. This is what they look like. I have a lot of kids. I have 5. The middle guy, when he was like 15, he played a game called World of Warcraft. You know it? Yeah. Do you have kids and have a problem with that? He used to go to bed, and then when we fallen asleep, he got up from bed and played all night, and didn't go to school because he was too tired. And God, did we have a clash. But I still, my wife's a very smart woman. She said, you got to sit with him to understand what's so great about that game, why he's doing that. So I did. I spent a weekend with them on that game, and they were, I don't know if you know about it, but it's like a world where people meet and fight all kinds of vile creatures. And some of them, called bosses, they're so powerful that you can't fight them on your own. So what you have to do is that you have to gather a lot of people together. So they make arrangements to meet at a certain place in that game, and then fight together. And I was so amazed, because there were people from all over Europe and all ages and all sexes and everything. And I was like, oh, this is so cool, right? And he just said, what? He didn't understand that. It was like this, acne-struck 15-year-old, really big feet, like, you know what they're like. And he couldn't understand what was so. He didn't care, and it struck me. None of them cared who the other one was. The only thing that mattered was where you showed up and what you did. And that's exactly what the digital world is, an internet. I think big data is probably something that everybody talks about. If that will work any day, it'll be after my death. And hopefully it never will. Because I'm irrational enough, and I think most people are irrational enough, the traces we leave on the internet are not who we are. They are simply where we've been and what we've done. If we haven't said on the private stuff. So it's a false picture by definition. And the reason why they want to sell it to us so badly is because there's such a big business in it. It's a gigantic business opportunity for the companies who can own this information and sell it to us. Just because they can own it and they can sell it doesn't mean it works. A good thing to start if you're a communicator, if you're an advertising agency, if you're a creative in an advertising agency, is to look at yourself. Try to find out how you think, try to find out how your family thinks, and try to find out why you think the way you think, and why you make the stupid, crazy decisions you do, because you're not different from anybody else. Most people are just like you. This is another thing. How many of you have been in process of doing brand platforms? I pity you. You're doing everything. But it's brand platforms. I spent 15 years invoicing like hell, doing these brand platforms for big companies, and I'm not ashamed of it. It was the way it was done. It was the way I thought it was. I really believed it was true, but it isn't. Brand platform is a construction made by communication engineers who doesn't have a real job to go to. It's, you know how the brand, brand and trademark are two different things in the English language. A trademark is the mark, right? But the brand is something else. The brand is, when they started buying companies over the stock exchange, they bought them too expensive. So they had something called goodwill. If you have goodwill, anybody here is an economist, if you have goodwill, you absolutely need to explain what that goodwill consists of. So it's distribution channels and stuff like that. And brand. So we needed models to evaluate what that brand was, the value of it, because it has a financial value. So all these consultants came in and started building models. It has nothing to do with the real world and communication. By the end of the day, someone has to be there and meet a client, meet a consumer, in a shop, in a service situation, anywhere, and they have to deliver on the brand. And give them a brand platform. I assure you, none of them will understand a single word. Even we as experts, I've been in so many works where we sat down like 10 people, really, really allegedly smart people, and we worked for months with this. And we argued about what does innovation really mean, right? Stuff like that. And then we put together this fantastic platform, and 1 week later we disagree on how to interpret it. Because it's simply too complicated and too much words. It's a construction. I would like to say brand platforms is an abstraction. Normally people can't understand it. Most of us can't understand it. So for our work, it only adds to confusion. Any research organization in the world would say to you, the tie between a brand and the consumer is shared values. This is the credo of Sigma 6, one of the toughest research agencies in the world, counting everything, at Sigma 6. This is what they say. It's shared values. And shared values is something that we can all understand. Do you think women and men are equal? Do you think diversity enriches our life? Stuff like that. Anyone can understand and say yes or no to that. Now ask your client, do you have a set of values? Oh, we have a brand platform. It's difficult to use values because everybody understands them. That's why it's difficult, because then you have to stand for something. You have to stand up to people. For Libero diapers, you know, SCA, you have Libero diapers here too. I worked with them for 14 years. We did a simple thing. We said, okay, this is what you're going to do. We have one sentence, and it says, we know what it's like, we got kids ourselves. The only thing any employee with you will have to think of is that, imagine it's your kid this is about. Any question you get, imagine it's your kid, and it'll work out. And it worked perfectly with the whole organization. Everybody understood it, and most of them had kids. Very simple model, you can steal it if you want. At the core is our values. That's why we make the products and services we do. That's why they look like they do. Volvo's cars are not safe because we think that's a good way to be in the market. They're safe because they come from Sweden. If you had a Finnish car, it would probably be pretty safe too. If it was an Italian car, not that. That has to relate to the consumer. So our values should resonate with consumer values, and our products and services should be the link between those. I stole this from Frank Zappa. He said it's about jazz music. But this is the strangest thing of it all. How am I doing with time? Sorry. Oh, it's okay? Okay. The fact is, advertising hasn't changed in 100 years. And you've all heard of the creative revolution in the 60s, and you've seen Mad Men on TV, like that, right? And the fact is that it was probably a great time. If you ask old people in the advertising business, they go on about it over and over and over again. But really, it didn't change anything. It didn't change anything fundamentally. What it changed, and we're celebrating its 50th birthday now around the world with exhibitions and stuff. It was 50 years ago. Most of you weren't even born. I was this big. It didn't change the fundamentals of the business. Before the creative revolution, nobody cared about creatives because the creative work was just what you filled the media space with, so you gave that away. You didn't charge clients for that. Until Bill Bernbach did that ad, allegedly, and everything changed. All of a sudden, creative work had a value of its own. And of course that has changed a bit for advertising agencies. So now creatives can have higher salaries than people in suits. Definitely, but it hasn't changed at all. This is how the business model is. I have a product. I think of what is my target group. Then I think of what do they like, what do they do, where do they go. And then I take my ad, and then I pay something, an extraordinary amount of money, to put my ad next to whatever they do. So it could be, originally, it could be a big poster like this, something like this by the side. I pay the guy who owns, or the company who owns this, a lot of money. And the only problem occurred when there were 5 of these beside each other from different companies. Then you needed a creative to separate them. But that was the business model. Guess what? You still do exactly the same thing. It's even worse today. Pre-rolls. You don't pay people to put your ad that nobody wants to see next to something they want to see you do. You actually pay them to put it in front of what they really want to see. How is that going to engage people? And besides, the only thing you do is that you're feeding people who are not really part of the process. The mission we have, and the mission you should have as a creative agency, is to make a difference, not to work within the borders of the communication industry. That's not creative. It's to make sure that whatever you do for the client makes a difference. Now, let's look at that. What does it take? It takes a new way of doing briefs. Now, this is for the clients in the room. takes a new way of doing briefs. As I said, the important thing is to make sure that the values we have find the link to what's going on in public interest. If it doesn't resonate with public interest, you might have to create public interest for it, but that's expensive. So the best thing to do is to look around the world and look around you and see, is there anything going on that resonates with our values? And can we then make our products or services the link between those two? That's the brief. We need a totally new campaign structure. Any brief you get that starts with, we need a 30-second spot, some outdoor, and a couple of ads. Anybody can do a brief like that. That's not good enough. We learned early on, at least the old ones like me, that you should have a USP, a unique selling proposition. That was something they came up with in the 60s and 50s. I don't know anybody who has one. If you know one, you don't need creativity. It's like a sale at Alko. Just say it to your friends and they will come running, right? Because they have a unique selling proposition. We're the only ones who sell alcohol, right? Now we learned that when you get a list of all kinds of things that the client wants into the communication, we've learned to say directly that you can't have everything, you have to choose. You can only say one thing. You've said that too to your clients. You can only have one thing. That's not true. You can say a lot of things. If you have all that money to spend, you can say a lot of things. Of course, you have to have something in the core, something that is central. But we do it quite the other way around. We choose something that we think will resonate as much as possible and cause as much commotion as possible. And then we add as much as we can outside. Side stories. If you do something that contains music, you can talk about the artist, you can talk about the composer, you can talk about anything in different channels, in PR, in digital, in social media. All of those stories resonate with the main story and makes that reach out even further. So it's good to have a long list. You're just not supposed to say everything during the same 30 seconds. At the center of this is always a piece of content that is desirable and relevant. It could be an event. Sometimes it's an event. I'm going to show you an event later on. It could be a music video. We've done numerous music videos. Music videos are great because artists don't have money to produce music videos. The record companies are really happy if you finance it. And further on, you can use the artist's social media to get a virality or spread, and the record companies are often willing to help out. The kind of muscle we have, for instance, with Volvo, none of the record companies in Scandinavia have that. They're really happy for us to use our money with their artists. We don't have to beg and ask. It could also be a documentary. I think documentary is one of the things that are really underrated. For the price that we pay to produce one first-class commercial, you can produce a whole documentary film with a world-class director. That's the difference in money. And it all starts and ends in digital, because that's where people are. That's where you do the pre-rolls, where you do the upmarket, that's what you do afterwards to make it spread. We get a lot of questions about how do you do PR for a campaign, because it's integrated with us. Or how do you make things go viral? Everybody wants viral. That's like having sex without consequences, you know. Everybody, you can just do it viral, it doesn't cost you anything, and you get all famous around the world. It doesn't work like that. It's the virality or the PR potential is the idea. It is from the beginning, it's created to give this. If people doesn't want to share it, then it's not a good idea. It's not worthwhile doing it. We also need a new way of using media. This is a very simple model. I like simple models. Content, presentation, and support. Content is actually that thing in the middle that people's going to share. And you have all these, today's a lot of buzzwords like content marketing and stuff like that. Don't go for it. It's the same as it's always been. Something really relevant and really interesting and compelling that catches you in the middle. And you probably will have to put in a little more money into that, a little more effort into that than you would do with an ordinary 30-second commercial. Then you have presentation. When you have that content, you need to place it in a couple of places so that people actually can see it and start sharing it. PR, your own channels, all social channels are really important. And nowadays, sometimes you also have to pay a little because not all editors publish things because they're nice people. They publish things because you pay them. That's the reality of the world, right? Support is the new one. 3 years ago, Facebook had 100% organic reach. You posted something, all of your friends saw it. If you now go into the commercial parts of Facebook, depending on what country you're in, it's between 8 and 20% organic reach, so they say. We've measured that on campaigns and it's been up to 4. So look at that line from 100 down to 4. You see where it's going? You have to pay for them to show your piece with all your followers. So that's support. But it's far from the kind of money that you paid for pushing things out. Now, do you need traditional media? All the media agencies were really, really scared about this. They hated this when we started working with it a couple of years ago. But then they found out that actually the commercialization of these things you have to pay for. Because if you put the product and a price, no one's going to share it unless it's the sale at Alco. But you need to do this. And if there's any clients here, it says Tier 2 and Tier 3. The beautiful thing about this is that Tier 2 is local money on local markets. And Tier 3 is dealership money. So it's not you paying centrally. Clients love this. Let's have a look at a couple of things and you will see what's in the core and how it's worked out.
Till vår nationalikon Zlatan Ibrahimovic. För igår så premiärvisades nämligen Volvos nya reklamfilm.
Det är en supersnackis verkligen. Och jag börjar fatta att så åker folk till lokala bilaffärer i Göteborg bara för att se den liksom live i deras butik.
Snacka om hype kring en reklamfilm. Här sitter du och jag och pratar om reklamfilm som inte ens har börjat visas än.
Ja, jag vill leva. Jag vill dö i Sverige. Mm.
Volvo cars are not just built and developed in Sweden. They are also built for the changing conditions we Swedes live in. Steep mountains, overgrown forests, long distances, darkness, snow and rain. And no model symbolises that better than the Volvo XC70. The new Volvo XC70 was launched in an election year, which also shone a light on another Sweden, a land where right-wing winds blew hard and where a party hostile to immigrants grew stronger and stronger. This campaign didn't just tell a story about a capable and hardy car created by and for us Swedes. By letting a Swede with an immigrant background perform the Swedish national anthem, it also took a position in the debate about who should be allowed to call themselves Swedish. The following is how the journalist Herman Linkvist summed up the campaign. In 2 minutes, Zlatan did more than what decades of integration committees have tried to do. His stirring chanting of the national anthem was a real success right on target in the goal of inclusive nationalism.
Jag vill leva, jag vill dö i Sverige.
How much time do I have?
Not much.
No.
Show your best still.
Oh, there's another one I'd like to show. You've seen the epic split, of course. There's no epic split 2, right? Just because it's Zlatan, I want you to see this.
On February 14th, PSG played against Caen at Parc des Princes. For most of the players, this game was just another day on the job. For Zlatan Ibrahimovic, this was his most important game to date. Underneath his sweater, he had 50 new names tattooed. Names of people he'd never met, but still wanted to keep close. Names of some of the 805 million people suffering from hunger today. Even though hunger is the #1 risk to health worldwide, these people rarely make the front page. Zlatan may not know how to end world hunger, but he does know how to make the front page of every newspaper in the world. Together with the United Nations World Food Programme, we created an event that turned the spotlight the world has on Zlatan towards the people who need it more. Our idea relied heavily on Zlatan's skills as a player. If he didn't score a goal on game day, we didn't have a campaign. But we didn't have to bite our nails for long.
So whenever you hear my name, you will think of their names. Whenever you see me, you will see them.
In that moment, we knew that our message would become world news.
Han altså the man. Zlatan, vi elsker Zlatan.
Made a video called 805 Million Names. In it, he reveals 50 new tattoos.
The campaign was strictly pro bono. Not even Zlatan got paid. Instead of a big budget to spend on media, we used Zlatan's fame to attract attention. His body as our main media, his social media channels to kickstart the campaign, and his famous friends to help us get an even bigger reach.
Wow. Hans, we have a few questions from the audience. Sure. I tried to play with my pad here, and this is the first one. How does Forsman Bodenfors Board of Directors work and benefit the company? Do you have external advisors from different fields of business?
No. I've been on the board for many years, and it's totally internal. The board is constructed by 6 people from the ownership group and does the things that boards do. Everything that's really important is done on the floor every day. So it's mostly financial decisions and organizational decisions.
Okay, good. Are you already tackling and playing on Audi's and Volkswagen's diesel fume scandal for the benefit of Volvo?
I'm afraid I can't comment on that.
We knew that. Your latest work with Dressman made my mother to visit DM store for the first time. Were you worried about the claimed Dove effect in your creative? In your creative? That's great work, however.
Well, it turned out that it had quite a few visual similarities to the first big Dove campaign. That you're all beautiful. They've done a couple since then, and I think that's a difficult question. You don't really steal ideas, but in some fields, when you have a strange body ideal, as is with women and as is with men, I think the new thing was that there were alarming figures from research that show that 80% of all men were discomforted with their bodies. It's figures that are in the same ballpark as women, actually. But women's been much harder exploited in advertising. But what we realized and what Dressman realized and Petter Warner realized, that they've been part of that because they have all these guys, you know. We don't look like that. So when they wanted us to do this campaign for their underwear, which is a big thing for them, money-wise, this was the solution. They bought it directly. There was no problem at all. And I think it resonates with something for real that we all can feel but not talk about. So yes, it has similarities, but it doesn't worry us.
Okay. You mentioned values are very central in your planning like procedure. But how do you know the values of target groups, or you said that there's no demography, but the values of your audience? How can you be sure?
Well, you can't be sure, but what you can do with values, which is really interesting compared to demographics, is you can decide if for a specific question, if you're going for the people who are for that or the people who are against it. So when it comes to like the first Lada campaign about diversity, the idea was we needed to do something that made Volvo stand out as the only Swedish brand, because Volkswagen and Audi were sort of hitting on that. So we need to do that. And we also said that when we do that, Volvo has to take a stand on what they see as Swedishness. And if you go to Torslanda, the factory, there are people from all over the world. So of course, Volvo's inherent value is that diversity is something good. Diversity makes our lives richer, and it makes Volvo richer. So Volvo decided, oh, that's good, we'll have to take a stand with that. And that's how the idea came up. And frankly, the people who don't think that diversity is something good, they can buy an Audi, basically.
It's also very clear to see that your clients have a lot of courage. Do they need your encouragement? However, sometimes
I don't think they have courage.
They don't.
No, I just think they're smart. They ask a lot of questions and they try to find out, how is this really working? Is this really going to work out? Prove it to me, because they don't want to take chances. They're not courageous. I don't think you should be courageous with the kind of money we handle. That's not being really smart. You should know what you're doing.
Hans Andersson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.